Well, welcome back. I'm comfortable. I'll get a chair in a minute. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today for this little but very, very interesting and important chat that we're going to have. Well, the key word for our roundtable today is obviously, the key word is value. The key word in design is value, regardless of the different interpretations that anyone might have of that word. What would be definitions for value? It could be, I guess, monetary. Obviously, we've talked about that this morning. It could be social value, cultural value. Oh, please, sorry, I'm just introducing, but please feel free to jump in. I'm sorry we only have 2 mics, but you can pass them on however you want, okay? So one here. Who's eager to talk? There you go. Let me see if they might be working. Yes, I guess they are. Are they both working? Yes, they are. Okay. Here, I'm going to just leave it here. We were talking value, social, ethical, or even sentimental value, which many times has a lot of importance in the products that are made or that are sold. In any case, every definition of value relates to a bigger picture, which is that fashion and lifestyle sectors need to reassess their value system quickly. And obviously, we've learned also this morning that design can help making that change. In this roundtable, which is kindly hosted by Valencia World Design Capital 2022, we have an amazing chance to involve the most relevant experts from across Europe and the world to discuss all this. How can we make meaningful changes in fashion and lifestyle industries? You are an amazing audience also, which is a unique opportunity today, composed by experts, designers, and technological and industrial people, and we want you to participate. We're just gonna try to jump into questions and answers and leave all the questions at the end. We might have a bigger chunk of time that we thought for questions. So please write down whatever you want to ask, because we will addressing questions from you, our audience today, at the end. We are talking about many things. We're talking circular fashion, we're talking reinvention of craftsmanship, we're talking about advanced digitalized manufacturing, new value chains, social innovation, social inclusion, smart and high-performance materials. But first of all, I think we all need to get to know each other. I'm just your host today. I'm not an expert in any of this. I'm actually an actor and a presenter. Yeah, I'm an actor and a singer. Yeah. I do musical theater, and I learned from you every year here at the Worth Project. So this is my brief introduction. And since I'm not an expert, I want everyone to introduce yourselves, like shortly, briefly, and tell us who you are, a little bit about yourselves, and then we'll get the roundtable started. And we can do that, we are not gonna do this in a row, because that's very boring. We're gonna start with Sebastian, and then we'll go this way, if that's good, because that's fun. That's more fun. Sebastian, can you go first? Yeah. Please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Yes, hi. My name is Sebastian. I'm a footwear producer in the 6th generation since 1856, and we run 2 own brands, but we also work for other bigger brands and corporations, and we focus on sustainability since about 160 years, because it's natural products we started with, and since the 90s, we focus on sustainable materials and new shoe concepts, and now, we focus a lot on material development.
My name is Leslie Holden. Can you hear me? Yes. My name is Leslie Holden. I'm the head of postgraduate studies in Amsterdam Fashion Institute, and that's a recent job for me. Before that, I was the head of fashion and design in Amsterdam Fashion Institute for 14 years, so I've been there a long time. And Amsterdam Fashion Institute is very, very focused on sustainable design, circular economy, and innovation. So it's great to be here today to talk with people and see what young SMEs are working on.
Hi, I'm Asad Awad. Originally, I graduated in graphic design, and then I went into accessory design because it was a passion inside of me. I started digging my way, and now I teach accessories and wearables in Lebanon, in Beirut, a new master degree of its kind. And I believe that every designer should be an artisan himself or herself.
I'm Flora, and she's Julia. She's my partner. We have a studio based in Paris. And we also get an award for an inclusive jewelry collection in the International Festival of Year in 2018.
And so our studio is named F&D, just to precise it. We are both coming from a product design background. And in our today practice, we work closely with agencies and brands and in the creation of new projects. So we work from concept to create stories, images, 3D modeling, and execution map and follow-up on production, so the whole process.
Hi, my name is Birya Garianen. I'm a professor currently at Aalto University in Finland. And my background is in textile industry, but I've been almost 10 years now working in the intersection of chemical engineering and design. So mainly around new materials and in most cases based on sustainability.
My name is Wolfgang Miltner. My background is computer scientist, so I do not belong here. No, my current job is actually making printed electronics happen. I try to explain the value of printed electronics to customers, and pretty successful recently. And I'm here also to help to bring also to get the right mix between design and technology and make things happen. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Manuela Navo. I'm from Austria. I'm from Ars Electronica in Linz. I initiated 18 years ago Ars Electronica Export. So I'm exporting our network of artists, of scientists, of creative technologists into the world. I'm also teaching at the Art University in Linz in interface culture. And yeah, I'm happy to talk to you then afterwards.
Hi everyone, my name is Alice. I'm the founder of the circular fashion consultancy called Circula Modo. That means circular fashion in Esperanto. That is a kind of universal language that I expect circular fashion is going to reach in the future. So my main work is to provide training and information about circular design strategies. Have you had a little bit of idea this morning? And also work with innovative materials. So those two areas of work activities.
Hi, my name is Kolbrún Gunnarsdóttir. I am based in Reykjavik, Iceland. I'm a fashion and jewelry designer. Having my own brands, I focus on sustainability and craftsmanship. I also have been doing some innovation and done feasibility studies on how to make seaweed textiles. And now I'm working on making bioresins for jewelry making from Icelandic plants. So I'm very excited about that, and hopefully I can help you also. You can contact me afterwards.
Well, I think it's quite an interesting steering board that we have here today with us. And it's quite bigger than the one that we had 2 years ago when I last hosted this event. So that is very promising and it makes me very happy. But I hear 2 years later, I hear more or less the same concerns. Things are evolving, developing, but changes still need to be made. And I think, of course, it is time for fashion and lifestyle industries to change how we source, how we produce and distribute apparel to customers. And since Europe has been discussing this circular models of production and sustainable processes, for years now. I would like to ask Alice and Sebastian also, but Alice was talking about all this morning, so maybe we can start with you. Do you think much has been achieved in terms of lowering the environmental impact of materials productions over the last 2 years?
Last 2 years. This morning I was talking about 20 years, right? So we have seen lots of improvement in the background, in the production, talking about all this bad footprint the industry has, the production sites have. And more recently we have heard more product-based alternatives, recycled material, proper sourced material, bioplastic, all those new words, they are coming out now. But what I see as something really different now in the last 2 years specifically is traceability and transparency. So the ethical part of it being really transparent, because then I can be reliable for my actions, and the traceability that my customers really like willing or able to keep the track on the product, you know, backwards. So I'm really like open myself in this area. But for sure, it's not all the industry working on that. So we have a handful of companies experimenting. So in this sense, until production, or until product get done, we have heard lots of things, recycle, blah, blah, blah. But when we transfer this to a product and thinking about next cycle, that it's like the circular concept I was commenting before, we are still in a waiting modus to see how to apply that and how to tackle that situation. So it's still not fast enough.
Okay. Sebastian, what do you think? And of course, these questions are more or less directed, but please, all the board feel free to jump in at a certain point if you want to comment. And I'm sure I will make some questions from my ignorance of all this, because I'm probably like the customer that you guys are all talking about. I mean, I'm the person that doesn't know anything about this, and that I now start liking, it's very interesting for me, I now start liking to know where my products come from and what happens with them afterwards or before they get to me. And I find it really interesting, and it's an interest, but I hadn't really gave it that thought, and I think after today, I will. So feel free to jump in, that's what I mean.
Well, when you look at the media, you would think that a lot is changing because sustainability is the mega trend and everything, but at the end, in the past 2 years, a lot of sustainable things happened. On the other hand, 2 years ago, you discussed about fast fashion, now you discuss about single-use fashion, which is the opposite development to what we try to achieve. So at the end, I think, until now, absolutely nothing was achieved. It even got worse for the planet, and we will have the double amount of people in a few years. So even if you have more sustainable products, there will be more products in the world. So you have to make a differentiation between the consumer, the retailer, and the industry. And I think to the industry, it had a huge impact because nobody is not thinking about sustainability. Most people are only experimenting, like big corporations. On the other hand, the one who executed, the consumer, is not willing to pay more. So that's also difficult for the industry to keep something up which doesn't sell. So the awareness of the consumer definitely is higher. On the other hand, a lot of people don't care. So you can educate them as long as you want. If somebody buys single-use fashion, it's not going to be the sustainable customer of the future. So you will have to live with that some people will not be sustainable. The retailers are the biggest problem to my mind because they are not supporting the consumer in their demand, and they're not supporting the industry in buying these products. So at the end, the only people who can really change it are the industry by not offering anything else anymore. So this could be the impact. But for the past 2 years, I think the only achievement was that there are some more sustainable projects and the awareness was raised. So that's sad, but...
It definitely is.
Yeah.
There's lots of questions that come to my mind, but I think I'm going to try and leave them to the end so we can move a little bit forward. Gabi, what do you think are the obstacles for greening the industry? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, never mind. This is an open question. That's anyone can answer, whoever you want. What do you think are the obstacles that Sebastian was talking to? So to make the industry not only the people aware, but how to make the industry greener nowadays so that they become really aware that they need to do that, and what is preventing us from making it greener right now, as of today?
Maybe somebody else?
Yeah. I mean, I think Sebastian actually
he actually tackled that question very well, but I don't know if there's any other aspect to it.
I think the main problem is that people continue to buy too much. And only 1% of garments which are made are recycled, because the technology isn't developed enough yet to actually recycle all the garments that are made. I think it's something like 75% of garments end up in landfill within the first year of them being made. Phenomenal amounts. And I think all these things are getting in the way of us being able to green the industry.
I've thought about this a lot. I think there's something that we think when there's a culture that has been created beyond the industry being greener or more sustainable, or beyond any of that, or circular fashion or production. I think there's a culture that we've all acquired, not all of us, but many people like me. We get our monthly pay and we devote part of that pay to buy new clothes almost every month. It's something that young people do. Youngsters nowadays, they get their salary and they go and buy clothes that they probably don't need, just because a need has been created to like renew what you're wearing or who you are. And I think if there was any way at all to change that culture, and that culturally in our heads, then the way we consume fashion would change. Do you guys have any? I mean, it's pretty obvious that it is that way, but I don't know if there's anything that we could change culturally.
It's simply the perception. It's the social pressure of you have to have 4 garments per month, because you have the new social media, social platforms, Instagram, selfies. All of these things were not available before. So now all the youngsters and the youth generation have the social pressure. If we are able to take away this idea from their minds, then they won't be consuming. The only justification of you, not you, but
use me. That's
buying
what I'm here
4
for.
garments per month,
it's all my fault.
Even if you're not going to use them, is for social pressure. Otherwise, why would we buy? If we're satisfied from our garment.
This is something I'd like to complement. Now there are out there digital collections of garments, that people can just download and place in a picture to post in an Instagram, So we got that exposure need of showing always something new, and this is really dangerous. And without the understanding that we have to have a new relationship with our garments, with our wardrobe, and we don't have to buy it. As I said here before, we can kind of rent for our needs or exchange and approach in a different way, not only new. We know it's really cheap, but it's something that is not going to last forever. This cheap, subsidized product from nature, from social work, paid really like unfair, So it's a long way. Education is something that takes really long, and we hope to see from all the sides some pressure, because the industry is the only one that can change. So from consumer side, getting like more and more awareness, but also from legislation side, so getting the pressure, the companies, and then we can see hopefully a faster change.
So you were talking about consumers' reaction to that change. To how can you, Flora or Julia, what do you think consumers' reaction in that change is as of today? We've already started to talk a little bit about all this, but what do you think?
Yeah, we are designers. We are consumers, but we are designers first. And of course, as designers, we are deep concerned about the interests and needs of the consumers. We imagine scenarios. We think about ergonomics. Obviously, we pay attention to shapes, lines, colors, and obviously material is really deep. And we think that today consumers are more and more concerned by the characteristic of the product. Where does it come from? How is it made? By who? Where? And they are also getting more and more involved in the production process. They are not just consumers. For example, they are involved in many ways. They can also building their own product, their own shelves from open source maps, for example, in Fab Labs. Choosing, they also can choose the finishing of the product on the website. And also, to have the object that fits really their desires.
Yeah, and also there is a new topic where they are really involved and they are becoming one part of this circular economy by recycling their own waste. They reintroduce them into the whole line and become real actor of it. And to illustrate this idea, I can talk about a specific project we are now working on. It's the idea of this project is about collecting specific waste, really specific waste material coming directly from the consumer to the brand. And so the consumer gets the opportunity to follow the transformation of his own contribution and also receive back the second product that was built out of his own material. So this is like a project we're now working on. So you can, like the consumer gives something and then it can follow really like the transformation. So it's also like something more precise and concrete. So I think the consumer is totally ready, but it probably doesn't always know how to really getting involved in this change.
Okay. So consumers maybe are not ready, but we also said that industry needs to lead that change. Is the market ready for sustainable fashion? What do you think? I would like to ask Birya or Holden to join in.
There is not one market. So there are consumers who are ready and who can't find those sustainable products, or they only find something which is greenwashed. But there is also a big problem. What is sustainability? It is such a complex issue to understand. Even if they want to have something sustainable, what do they really want? So it is super, super complicated. But of course, unfortunately, it's so easy to talk here in our own European bubble here, but I mean there is a huge areas of this globe, this our shared Earth, which millions and millions and billions of people are not yet here, not yet able to think of these things. So we need it's a good question. Sometimes the market is ready, sometimes not at all.
Okay.
I of course agree with you, but I also think that the market is really getting ready for sustainable fashion, for example. I mean, I see a huge difference since I started my label in 2012 and now. It's totally, totally different, the interest and also the availability of things that you can use as a designer. And I also think that I think we have to focus more on waste for example. Like we were talking about, that people need to reuse their clothing. And for example, I'm making upcycled jewelry, and this is a very good project, and people are loving it because you can see that they can see their old jewelry going to new jewelry, for example. But in Iceland, we are a very consumer-rich country, and we buy a lot. And I know that in 2016, there were like each person throwing out 16 kilos of clothing. But now, last year, we opened up stores where people can actually just sell their own closet to other people. And this is actually stores in the malls. So regular people that never thought of going to second-hand or vintage clothing, they're actually buying that, and it's very successful. And so I think the market is getting ready, although we're not there.
Well, that's great that we see some light shining in all this problematic moment and big issues. And let's lighten it up. So we are all designers here in this room. As someone said before today, we're all designers in a way of our own life or our own economy or our own clothing. So how can design help shape the future of sustainable fashion industry? Alice.
Oh, yeah. I can say something. Well,
or anybody. I just have her close to me. Yep. And we've been close all morning.
Special. We have heard this morning design is a key driver, and it is. If we don't include the role of the designer in this new whole system we are planning to reduce consumerism, to offer alternatives without like constraints to people that want to have something different. So we have to offer transitional business models, new ideas of sharing whatever we do have without the need of owning it. Mm-hmm. If we don't consider the design and proper design strategies, to feed the system with proper products, nothing is going to change. And if I don't think holistically when I'm designing something, if I don't think at reincarnation, as I said before, the reborn of a product, rebirth of a product after it's dying at the first time, the second time, the third time, nothing is going to change. We are still going to have tons and tons of waste. As Leslie said, we are going to recycle only 1% because we are not designing it in the proper sense. So really like sustainability, circularity to take place, we have to consider different design strategies that allow that products, materials, items, whatever, they can keep on going, and at the end of their services, they have a next life already like foreseen. So if we don't include designer, we are going to produce waste at the end as we are doing now. This is the point. So we are not kind of solving problems. We are just like reducing some problems here and there, through transitional idea, but we are not really definitive like acting. Now we have to change in the design phase, so we will avoid the waste at the end. We are just like solving problems. Firefighters, it's huh? Just like that. So the design is a key role in the situation.
Being a key role, Leslie or, Asad, yeah.
I think that the only way to do sustainable future for the market is to try to make more artisan and more sustainable way to produce things, because nowadays sustainable means luxury because of its high price. So it will never grow if it's not normalized. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are many products that are sustainable and affordable, but most of them, when you see the sustainable tag, you expect 3 times, because you expect 3 times the life of the item. It will last more because it's not fast fashion. So when we regularize all of this, like in the past, everything was sustainable and everything lasted for 20 years and 30 years, then we will be helping in a logical way.
And what do you think is the role of the new generation of designers in all this game?
Yeah, as I said, in the past, when we started designing, it was all about the originality of the concept, about the impact. Now the new designers have the impact on the planet. How would that impact the planet? And they have more ways to do things. They have the internet to get inspired from, to get connected with. They have the 3D machines at home. They have the CNC machines at home. So all the lab changed. We had the connection with the artisan, and we used to do things. And plus, in our days, the artisan was going down in terms of concept. Now everything is like based on the artisan work and craftsmanship. Thank God. But new designers have so many options, so many new options, and less rules to express themselves. Because all of the loads of pictures they see every day, they broke the rules. Even if you live in a small village in any country, you are exposed to what's happening in the world as we speak.
Leslie, you teach many, many new designers every day, or you are in touch with them. What do you think about this?
Yeah. Everything starts with design. That's where all the ideas are born. So in connection with the last question as well, that's where decisions are made to influence whether a garment is sustainable or not. So that's the point we have to work from. I think about 4 years ago now, I was given a keynote speech at a fashion summit in Brussels. I prepared the whole thing. I knew what I was going to say. I stood up on the stage. I looked at my notes, and I had this sudden light bulb moment. And I opened my mouth, and I said to people, I'm not quite sure why I'm here. I'm going to talk to you about fashion and about what we do at our university and how we approach it. However, I say now I cannot continue to support teaching students in a way to perpetuate this old business model, that I will guarantee that our university is going to do something about it from this point. I think it's so important that all these things start with education. I'm going to talk about that in my speech tomorrow, plug, just to tell you I'm going to do that. So be there or be square.
He's just tagging it there.
Yeah,
so please come to his speech tomorrow. It'll be very interesting.
Yeah. I think it's really important that we create change makers. I think that's essential. Change makers who will help us move this industry from the linear make, take, waste, old business model and stop the industry continually reverting to its default, its norm. And that is what I think the new generation has to do for us, but they have to have our help to do that. We have to take responsibility to make sure that they have all the knowledge that they need now, so when they have the opportunity, they are going to make the changes that we could not make.
Assad mentioned something very important, and this was a huge topic 2 years ago also, between new designers and artisans and the craftsmanship and how it all intertwined together. I think special attention must be given to the preservation and generational transfer of highly specialized competencies or artisan work. In your opinion, Manuela, we haven't heard from you. In your opinion, what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, or threats of the European fashion and product design as of today?
So, strengths, weakness, opportunities.
I had a roster of things, so you go and choose.
No, I come with a short example. At our university, we have the Creative Robotics Lab. And they were actually working together with an old family company in Upper Austria, and they are settler. So they do these saddle things for horses. And they came to the Robotic Institute, and they were saying, well, can we actually work together? Because we need I think we can, you call it parametric design, and how you actually use the robots in order to come to these forms of saddles. Can we actually work together. And I think this is a nice example that brings like old know-how together with brand new technology and also new skills by young people, brings together like people that are working there since centuries already with new technologies. And I think this is something where I would say the strength is, of course, maybe even there could be new design options, because in the way when robots are doing things, then you actually have new possibilities in designs. The weakness, of course, I mean, everything is starting now, so these are more or less often prototypes that have to be tested and so on, so there is still a way to go. The opportunities are huge because a lot of different people are now working together, and engineers are now working together with people coming from handcrafts and settlers and so on. So I think this is huge opportunities always when different disciplines are working together. The threats, you often hear that then, of course, knowledge is lost or replaced by robots and machines and so on. I think this is something that we have to be very observe very well and see that this is not the case. Of course, I think we have to think about it, but yeah, it's we will see. So this is just an example, like from my experience that I personally had.
We have Wolfgang here, who's also who's an expert in new ways, and so what do you think about this? How the new technology can help all this industry and making this change?
I would like to expand actually on that what Manuela said, because I think one of the strong things we have here in Europe is collaboration. We are not using it always, but this is something we have, and we can develop things together. And especially if it gets complicated, where technologies have to be combined, especially then also with new designs, we need collaboration. So that is, of course, also what Worth is about, but there's a lot of other projects where I see this is actually something we could have used in the past. Europe much stronger, because we have different views on topics, and if we combine them, we come out with a lot of creativity. And it's not just technology, because, of course, we are also strong in technology, but making technology to a useful product, getting it a value, that needs creativity and needs design. And I think, and there are good examples for that, and Manuela just has told us one, I think using this diversity in Europe to make it happen is one of the strong competencies we can use in the future. And we are using it today here.
Since we're talking about this, about digitalization and new technologies, what do you think are the impacts of all this in the fashion value chain? So, like, how does it impact?
This is actually a question, let's say, really opening a big topic.
Yeah.
And when we talk about digitalization, actually, the first thing is everyone has a different definition. Everyone talks about it, but understands something different. So this can be from the prototyping process, using 3D printing machines to, or it has to do something really, we talked about the value chain, connecting value chains digitally. So I think, first of all, it's really, you have to find the case, the use case, and then find out what can digitalization do for you. And actually, I talked with Sebastian about what is 3D printing doing for the shoe industry, because I know some companies already starting to do personal shoes based on 3D printing, really done case by case. But this is all prototype stuff. And so I think really there could be a huge impact of digitalization, but we need to have a good education on this, and we do not have it yet. It's not yet in the industries. The IT experts, which may help there, are not the industry experts, so there is that what I demanded earlier, this collaboration, it's not yet there. But it's a huge opportunity.
Do you want to comment, anyone? Okay. So, no, that's fine, that's fine. Well, I'm glad that I was going to just say, come to Leslie's talk tomorrow, honestly, but since you did. We're talking about new technology, but we're all designers here, and also I've heard about a lot here at the Worth Weekends that I've attended so far, is how our new materials that are found or are created are helping make this change or shaping this industry. I don't know, Sebastian, if you want to comment anything about this, or maybe Flora, maybe. What do you think about all this? How are all these new smart materials, intelligent materials, shaping this industry in a different way? Like, I remember, for instance, 2 years ago, somebody presented smart clothing that I had never heard of, and I thought it was quite interesting to like have something that I could, because I'm cold all the time. I'm cold all the time, regardless of where I am, basically. Not now because I'm nervous, but usually I'm cold. So I thought it would be great to have a garment that's affordable and sustainable, but that I can choose what temperature, or it helps me being less cold. So, well, it's something that it just pops into my head. How is all these new materials helping shape a new industry?
Well, the thing is how you define smart materials. For some people, smart materials are based on electronic things. Mm-hmm. Then you can have smart materials which come from nature, like coal fibers, things like this. So, for example, right now there's a lot of smart materials which can have additional function. Sustainably wise, it's the question if you include electronics, then it's often not very sustainable, but at least for people who maybe have some needs where you can use technology, there it's a big advantage. And I think for somebody who has like needs, body, deaf, blind, whatever, then the sustainable aspect is not the first aspect, because it's not really important, because they buy something they need. But for otherwise smart technology right now, if you go to the shops, mostly you see fun things, like having funny pictures, or you can change the color of something. So at the end, for me, real smart materials are more coming from nature, like wool, and what can we do with these kind of things, or how can we replace some smart textiles even now going back to nature. Like, for example, there are these ski boots where you have electronics inside to get it heated, so you have a dry shoe the next day. At the end, through this technology, now there's a new technology coming from Japan, which is based on coal and which has the same function without any electronics inside.
Wow.
But this would probably not exist because of the electronic version before, so it can have different impacts. And for me right now, the biggest impact can be in the luxury sector, because for all these smart materials, whether it's electronic or not, the consumer market is already paying attention to it, and it's in the market. Nike, Adidas, cheaper companies, they also use these kind of sustainable smart materials, but the definition of luxury for the future will change, because I think a Gucci shoe now in 10 years should have, the real luxury about it is to have functional materials which are sustainable at the same time, and not a logo made in China assembled in Italy. So there is the biggest impact, I think, and these companies are changing now their awareness, because somebody like H&M is already thinking about sustainability for a long time, but maybe Prada or other brands didn't have the need, because their definition of luxury before was to have good quality.
I'm not an expert in smart material at all, but from my point of view, a smart design is the use of the right material, the right process, and the right supplier.
Great.
That's already something.
Maybe I could continue, because now when we are doing plenty of ideas, inventions, becoming one day in innovations, and when we think of the world of materials, what is happening now, we don't know the future. So it's really about to think, like we've been discussing here, how will those materials, how can we use them, keep them in a loop for next decades? Because you know the biggest invention in 60s, which was that material was supposed to save the world almost, and it was plastics. And I mean, it was cheap, it was durable, it was a wonder material. And in some cases, it might still be, because if it can be used in a right place, in a right product, and kept in a cycle for a long loop, it's not a bad material as such. The problems with these materials is how we use them, either in industry or as users. So materials might not be bad or good, but I also like very much of the discussion of, for example, wool being a smart material. Yes, wool is definitely a very smart material. But also many of these new things that we are inventing now will be smart materials, but we don't know yet which one of these ideas will stay and develop, which will just come and go. It's very interesting time now.
It's very interesting to me how the definition of smart can be so wide, and depending on how you use it, and it changes what it is sold or told us to consumers as smart. So it's very enlightening for me. Thank you very much. I would like to know, because I think at the end we all go back to society, how it impacts society, how can society manage this change, or how can we as members of the society change the way we think about fashion or the materials or how we use it. So how can fashion contribute to promoting inclusion values that matter to today's society? I don't know, or if you have any story that's successful that you might want to share with us. I don't know, Leslie, maybe?
Well, in fact, the fashion industry at the present moment is really facing a storm of political consciousness. Consumer activism, social media penetration, putting intense pressure on brands to kind of step up and be more inclusive. It's really happening. We really see a lot of evidence of that happening very, very quickly. There's an increasingly diverse and vocal consumer base. There is also a perceivable gradual shift in the industry, with more people of color being given positions, important positions in fashion, such as the recent editor-in-chief of British Vogue. And I've written down some, because I knew this question was coming, so I wrote down some percentages here. Ad campaigns featuring models of color rose 15% in spring 2015 and 35% in spring 2019. And then the catwalk shows in London, Paris, New York, Milan, we're seeing lots of shifts in the use of models. So there's more older models, there's more plus-size models, there's more transgender models or non-binary models, and more and more companies are starting to use these kind of models, like Gucci and Chanel and Burberry. And these companies are hiring diversity and inclusion officers. So I think that the industry is actually doing a hell of a lot now to try and shift and to change the perception of how it is approaching diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, I agree. I also, coming from the Nordic countries, I can also say that I'm very happy that, for example, the Swedish Fashion Council, they cancelled Fashion Week last year because they want to make a new approach to it, more sustainable approach. They haven't actually come up with the idea yet, but hopefully we will hear about that soon. And the Copenhagen Fashion Week as well, they want to be, or are aiming to be zero waste by 2022, which is very exciting. And they are asking designers to have their collections, like 50% of the collection should be sustainable or from sustainable materials, not using any plastic hangers, and have their set designs like zero waste. So these kind of things are really promising, I think, for the fashion industry. As well as, wasn't it Italian Vogue that had illustrations on the cover because they were like reducing their impact on photo shooting, etc. So I think it's happening for sure.
Well, it's also widely known, and I want to go back to this topic, Assad, that some strategies being implemented by the high-end fashion industries are there to preserve craftsmanship. Do you know any successful case study or a successful story that you can share with us about this?
I actually don't know who started this campaign. It's good they started it, but suddenly, if you step back, everyone was having the same argument, which is good. But if all the fashion brands and luxury brands are talking the same message, no one is like breaking through the cluttering of this message. So every brand had their way to like slalom between this. So for example, Louis Vuitton started this, defending the craftsmanship and talking about the light coming from the window, the old man is suing and all of this. But suddenly they realized that they don't want that. They want the youngsters, hip-hoppers, and they redirected the brand towards this. They don't advertise this anymore. On the other hand, Loewe are advertising this, but then they made the yearly prize of artisanship. So they would give an award for the best artisan doing any kind of technique, not only in leather. And then they would use one of the techniques in their collection. Then you have Chanel. Chanel did a huge building now called 19M, which englobes all the artisans that Chanel works with since years. The feather artist, the leather artist, the shoe, the hat, all of them in one huge building under one umbrella of Chanel. There they will be working for Chanel and they will be working for other projects in parallel. So every brand has its own interpretation of this because at the end they were like talking the same message and they needed to differentiate their message from others.
Well, I think I don't want to run out of time, and I want our audience to be participants of this round table. So we have 15 we have 15 minutes left, and I don't know if any one of our steering board wants to add anything. Otherwise, we will take comments from our audience right now. Yes, hold on. I need one of your microphones. Thank you. Anna, we'll take it to you, and then we'll start. There's a couple questions.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for speaking and about all these really important matters. I'm a PhD student in the Swedish School of Textiles in fashion design, specializing in zero-waste fashion design. My question, and the question that for me always comes up in my head whenever I go to these events and hear people talking about things to do with overconsumption, wanting to reduce how much people buy, or companies producing too many garments that they can't sell. What that means, in my mind, is a reduction in growth, but no business will get on board with that. And so a lot of people on stage were talking about this need for industry to kind of push forward change and for consumers to change their behavior. But the big picture, for me, I don't know if anyone agrees here, is that that means fundamentally a reduction in growth. So I was just wondering if anybody has a response to that.
I think fundamentally that is not going to happen. it is predicted that fast fashion is going to continue to grow even more and even quicker. Over the last, I think, 4 years, it's grown 60% or something like that, something phenomenal. That will not stop. What might happen is that we see more of a shift between fast fashion as in clothing and fashion as in more artisanal quality luxury products, more expensive, etc., etc. But I think it's much more about how the industry focuses on the system and the way things are manufactured and the way that fabrics are developed, and that whole process, I think, is the key element to it. Another reason it won't slow down is, for someone else said earlier about how the population is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and more people in developing countries are getting more money and they want to, spend more money on clothes. So I see no end to consumption. But I don't know, maybe Alice, maybe there is a kind of hidden gem there somewhere.
What I see is like the consumption in a different perspective. Not the consumption about buying something, but the consumption of having the possibility of using something. And then we are not exploring virgin materials and so on. So we are adding value afterwards. So we are creating something that it's supposed to be there for a long time and fulfill the need of different customers and the whole life cycle of this item until it gets remade as a new one. In this sense, we can provide abundance to lots of people without really like going and exploring deeper and deeper the boundaries we had with the planetary boundaries and the social work we are doing. And if we see this value creation for business, and using what we are producing afterwards, not like getting the hands of the consumer and throwing this away afterwards, as I said before, 460 billions of value being thrown away in the hands of the consumers in related to garments every year. So if we see this value creation afterwards, we really can fulfill this growing population. But it does not happen like that. This is sad, but yeah.
Sebastian.
Well, if you talk about growth, for example, if you look at H&M, they didn't grow at all the past 2 years. And that is the result of overproduction and launching too many cheap items. So it's a matter of execution. And one thing is for sure, our industry is going to shrink and the market is going to grow because there will be more and more people no matter what we do. So the market itself for the amount of garments is growing, but our fashion industry will for sure shrink in the future because fashion is also something, for some people, fashion is important, but for the most people, it's not like 20 years ago. Now they care more for how their living space looks like, what kind of new iPhone they have or something. Fashion to most people is not that important anymore than before, so they use it as a practical thing for daily life, which also means if you buy something not for fashion, but you have your style, you only wear black, something you just need it, like for work, then you have to buy quality, because if you wear something functional, it doesn't make sense to buy anything cheap because you will not see the difference. Like when you buy a neon pink shirt, then it's for fashion. If you buy a white shirt to work, then it's more important that you have good quality. Otherwise, it's going to be more expensive than if you buy 5 cheap ones instead of 1 good one. So at the end, also this development means that for some people, they will grow a lot because if, as an industry member, you execute a product well, you can grow very fast. Because in the past few years, for example, we come from the industry and we managed to execute some products so well that we can offer a better product for the same price than the less good product 2 years ago. But technically it was not possible. So if you manage to execute a product now, this means exponential growth for you. But at the same time, of course, it also means the opposite of growth for your competitor, but that's also something which is called competition. So at the end right now, it's, for me, the next trend to sustainability is survival, and survival is not meaning that we are going to die, but for sure as a company and industry, we are going to die if we don't execute well.
We had another question over here.
One more.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think to slow down fast fashion is not to feed the fast fashion. So it's to reset the mindset of all the young people that fast fashion is not the cool part. I don't know how hard it is, but now they are hooked to this because it's like kind of addiction to consumption. So if we are able to spread this message, then this fast fashion won't have the gasoline to be that fast. They would slow down, as you said, like H&M.
Okay, this is Jordi Montaner from Barcelona. Well, I'm a head of innovation of a flat knitting factory in China, and I'm a teacher in the university in engineering in Barcelona. And I just wanted to have a comment about what we talked at the beginning. We were talking about consumers consuming too much, and this being a problem. And I don't know if I would give I mean, it's not their fault, them consuming too much. I think it would be good if we, as designers, we would make products that have a good impact to the environment and not bad or better impact to the environment. What I mean by that? I used to have a teacher that told me once like a really hard thing, which was like, imagine a man saying, I used to hit my wife every day, and now I only hit her once per week. And is this good? No, it doesn't make sense, right? So why not creating products that have a good impact to the environment? So I imagine, for example, like I'm doing bio-based algae yarn, right? And this algae is a parasite that eats other sea weed from the sea. And also I'm fairly paying the fishermen that take this seaweed. I don't know. So I'm just thinking, are we having this mindset of creating like positive impact products?
This is exactly the chain of production of fast fashion, because they don't pay the fishermen, they don't do the research. It is cheap to consume more, but then when it's sustainable, it's more luxurious and it's more costly. This is why it's not consumed that much. And this is the whole problem. What you talked about is the problem, actually.
And still, if you create a sustainable product, you still need resources. So even the most sustainable product needs a lot of resources. So still, at the end, as a consumer, you should consume less in the future. Otherwise, even there will be more, if you use more electricity to produce the algae shirt, you will have more algae in the sea. Yeah, so at the end, we have to find new industries, I think, for us. There's just a certain amount of space in each industry, and if these industries are fully set, you have to find a new market or create your own market.
I mean, you're totally, I mean, sustainability, I'm tired of the word. It's so complicated. But at the end, I think, like I'm always thinking about in-store production or localized manufacturing. I mean, I work in China and it's a mess. Just like the samples that I need to send back and forth with a plane just for designers to review because they want to feel it, right? So it's always complicated, but yeah, you can be still having a positive impact to the environment, and yeah, you will use material because at the end it's a product, but still.
The more important thing, I also don't like the term sustainability because people also think it's talking about ecological aspects, but sustainability, if you have a business since 150 years, it doesn't really matter what kind of product you have. The business was for sure sustainable, otherwise it wouldn't last for 150 years. And so the definition of sustainability is a question of quality also of the product. Because to my mind, for example, for shoes, it doesn't really matter, even though we do it, but it doesn't really matter if it's from a recycled material or if the material is recyclable, because at the end, if you have a good shoe, you will wear it till it's dead. Mm-hmm. So then only the quality counts and maybe where you get the leather from. It's more important that how the animal was treated than how it was tanned at the end, because if the shoe lasts for 30 years, at the end it doesn't really matter because it will never be recycled. And almost no product right now which is recyclable is returned by the consumer, because if you buy a product which had a certain amount of price, people will rather sell it on the flea market for 20 euro instead of giving it back to the retailer, putting it in a ton and recycle it. Because if a good shoe ends up in a ton, nobody's going to recycle it. They will just take it and sell it somewhere else. So at the end, this also means nothing, mostly, that something is recyclable. Or there's a brand now for home slippers for kids. The shoes cost only 15 euro and they're recyclable. But at the end, if you have kids and you send them to kindergarten, and if you ever took a look at the shoes after 1 year, there's nothing to recycle anymore because it just teared apart. Huh?
No, don't listen to what he's saying. No, kidding. To be recyclable, it's one thing. We have to think like in further uses, possibilities before that. The last cycle we should think it's being recyclable for our shoes, for example, not for our toothbrush and our underwear, right? So this is something that it's a really long-term approach, should be considered for sure, but we have to consider the value that is inside it without adding any industrial process to it. So keep using, reselling, exchanging, giving to a friend, you know? So this is much more important now than thinking about recyclability. So the small approaches, the inner cycles that we can give the chance to that product to keep up with our pace. And being a new product, even being an old one, to someone else. So this we should all, as users, we should apply in our daily life.
I think there was one more question over there.
Thank you. My name is Simone. I am a designer, like many of the people here, and I like to think in opportunities. So it's actually a comment I have. And I especially like to think in digital opportunities. So I think the digital world gives us opportunities to do things in a different way, in a better way. There's two things I think we can all do. The first one is to make transparent where our products come from, how they are made, what materials are used. And I think, I don't know if everyone knows it, there's a very nice company called Everlane from the US, and they do it in a very nice way. And it's something we can all do. I think this should be the standard. So if you buy a product, you can see where it was made, by whom, from which materials. And it's something we can easily do with the digital capacities that we have. And there's another thing. I think another thing that the digital world offers us is that we can now directly sell to our customers. So we don't need all the middlemen that also need to profit from the products. So it doesn't need to be sold to a shop, and the shop goes to the customer, and sometimes there are more parties, and they all need to earn, and in the end there's only so little money left to produce it. So you have to go to countries and hardly pay your employees to make it, because otherwise you cannot earn from it. So in the new world, the new digital world, we can sell to our customers directly, and actually I think we can also pay a fairer price to have it produced. So that's my recommendation for everyone. And I think there are a lot of designers here, but not the manufacturers, because they're manufacturing our products. So let's give them also the credits for what they do, and show them when we promote our products.
Thank you. One last question, and this will wrap it up, I'm afraid.
Hello, I'm Anna. I'm already nervous, so I hope I find the words to express what I want to say. Yeah. So I'm Mexican. I have been living in Barcelona for 2 years already, and being like more conscious about sustainability for a year. Okay. So this background I have gives me the opportunity to see like the difficulties we are actually presenting when we are trying to convince like common people to say something, because we all here have some consciousness. So the thing is, this is just a reflection, and I will really appreciate if you can like make it stronger for me. We all are human beings. We all have needs, and what I think is like As human beings, we have like different layers. Like first, we have our own needs, and then our own worries, and then our social worries, and then maybe I will have the time to think about sustainability and circular economy as a consumer. This is my point of view, yeah? So I think we are living a stage, I mean, I know it's changing also, there's a lot of spirituality living already, but I think most of people, and what is happening now, is that there's a lack of consciousness and self-esteem. So what fashion is covering in some way is this lack of self-esteem, and it's giving me kind of status and recognition. So that, as a consumer, is why I need actually to buy and buy more. And this is like all the communication that the big brands have, right? So I think us as designers, in terms of creating like really big opportunities to change the world and to move into sustainability, we have to understand, like most people are like with their own fears and their own insecurities, and that they are trying to fulfill these holes with things. And then if we understand this, maybe we will be able to actually do proposals that can reach them, and maybe we can convince them to to buy less stuff. I don't know if I can express this. And the other point of view I have is like, what would you do, and this is a question, like what would you do if you are Amancio Ortega? I mean, you are wealthy, you have your interest, you have your big company, and then you have the pressure about turning sustainable, but your whole model is not sustainable. So what would you do if you were him? If this is an open question for you.
Let's take that one then.
Take the money and spend it on education. Teach the people, and then they can take their own choice. And in the meantime, he can make the money with his corporation. Maybe be a little bit more innovative, because they would have the resources to do more innovative products, but that's just an amount of time, resources, people, money. But I think if he would want to invest into the future, he should invest into the education of the people, which is getting, to my mind, less and less.
But this will be you being in the position of Amancio Ortega. But if you are Amancio Ortega, actually, like, I mean, because what I'm trying to say here...
If I would be him, I would retire.
I know. What I'm trying to say is that we maybe should start thinking about the big fashion industries, not as like the people to fight, but our clients. So if we start like thinking that we can understand they don't want to lose their business, and they have the money that we need to develop our sustainable processes, then maybe we have an opportunity to sell them the idea, and maybe all together, like collaborating with the big monsters to make this world better, you know?
Yes, but my answer would still be education. Because the people, I don't mean with education, I don't mean small kids going to school, also that. But I mean education to us as grown-ups, because I see in daily life when we are at the fashion fairs, you have buyers who make a decision for 100 million euro every year, and they know nothing. They cannot even make a difference between a PU shoe and a leather shoe. Buying a product for 30 years, I mean, have you ever seen a dentist who doesn't know anything about teeth? That's something in our industry for fashion and design, which to my mind is not affordable, but somehow it's affordable, because I think 98% of all the people working in our industry know nothing about their own product, know nothing about manufacturing. But in other industries, like car industries, you cannot build a BMW car without knowing anything about your product, but you can make luxury t-shirts without knowing what cotton is. You don't even know how the plant looks like, where the cotton is coming from. And this is something, I think, where people need education. And I learn something every day, and I'm in the industry, so there's nobody who's excluded from being more educated, I think.
Well, I'm really, does anybody want to comment anything? I think that's a great ending to our talk and to this round table. We need to finish because we have a lecture coming up. Thank you also very much for your questions. Thank you to, let's give a warm hand of applause to the steering board. I think this was very educational for all of us here in the room, especially for me. Thank you so much, and we will just continue in 5 minutes with our next lecture. Thank you, everybody.